recording now. We can get started. Welcome everyone to Beers, Bros, and Biz episode 2. I am on the road, so I cannot join you with a drink. I'll be drinking some water.
You can. It's frowned upon.
Ooh, Maui.
Yeah, it's another local for
Local
Alvin.
tally.
I told you, I'm convinced that he does it like the several regions of the several islands of Hawaii and just chooses beers from those.
Alvin, what are you drinking? Coffee?
Oh yeah.
So I'm calling from Flagstaff, Arizona. We're driving through the mountains and headed to Fresno. But back to Beers, Bros, and Biz. So for week 2, it sounded like you guys were a lot busier this week. It seemed you guys were kind of quiet in our friend chat. I'm assuming it was because you guys are very busy, which is good to hear.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to know what that was like. Who wants to go first? Alvin, Sharoon?
I can go first. So it started off exactly a week from today, and we just met with our teammates around this time and went through our cases for Monday. And then we went to class Monday morning around 8 a.m. We had class from 8 to 1:30. And then around 1:30, we had a 30-minute break, ate lunch, maybe an hour tops. And then from 2:30 to 6:30, I prepped for cases. So we have 3 cases a day, 4 days a week. I was just telling Sharoon. So we have 6 people on our learning team. 2 people take 1 case each, and then those 2 people deep dive in that case. But everyone's expected to read all the cases. At least that's the norms that we have built. In our learning team meeting that happens between 7 and 10 p.m. every night, from Sunday through Wednesday, we go through all the 3 cases, and the 2 people that deep dive in that case, we just go through the material and share everything from context to calculations to Excel models to conclusions and answers to questions. And then we go through, so it takes about an hour per case, and then we go through each of the 3 cases, and then we rinse and repeat for Monday through Thursday. And obviously on Thursday, we don't have the preps for Friday because there's no class. So it starts Sunday afternoon to Thursday afternoon. And then this past Friday, we actually had all day recruiting stuff and just talking about, how to, stage yourself for recruiting that's coming up really, really soon. And then I had a day off Saturday, and then I'm here starting to read cases again Sunday morning.
So explain to me a little bit more on what the recruiting is. For me, recruiting is going to college and recruiting college students. So what is that? What you're saying you're preparing for recruiting? Is it resume check? Is it interview skills? Is it the research on the companies? Because I guess you're preparing for recruiting on your end versus so what is that like?
Good question. All of the above, right? It's talking about your resume, about LinkedIn, how many companies to apply to, how do we reach out to our network, list how many companies we list out, how many people, and just the ways to think about how many companies to approach. What about, timelines, the different things. So all of the above. And with these MBAs from top schools, companies come to us, and rather than we go to them, right? And these MBAs are more sought after, as Roy can attest to. So it's just a matter of timeline, trying to level set expectations, what to expect when, so on and so forth. Does that help you? Israel, you're on mute.
So when does that start? So you're preparing for recruiting. When are you expecting that to?
Right. So we come to your wedding next week, and then September 10th is our first career fair. So that Friday, while you guys are hanging out in California, I'm back here doing virtual recruiting. Yeah.
Nice.
And info sessions. Yeah.
That's a good point. It's going to be virtual recruiting. So what are you guys using a specific app or what? How does that set up?
So all our fairs, I mean, like our company info briefings, everything will be done via Zoom. There are two methods that will be Darden specific. And then since a lot of business schools will be doing virtual recruiting, these companies are consolidating this recruiting efforts and doing like a multi-school event, right? So it's both multi-school and individual, but 100% through Zoom, at least for the next couple of quarters. TBD on January starts. January interview, sorry. Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Have you thought about like some industries that you're definitely not going to look into recruiting? I know that you talked about strategy and looking around some other places, but have you made some eliminations as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good question. Investment banking, absolutely not. You know, just the type of work doesn't interest me. Great, the money might be great, but I'm not interested in the hours. I'm not interested in the type of work. So investment banking is one. Even to an extent, like I have a career meeting with the consulting career coach for her to talk me out of it, right? I know we've spoken about this in the last video, but I am more convinced I'm going to go into the general management operations, they call it GMO here, or strategy in a company in the tech industry more so than consulting or IB. You know, so if I had to give you a direct answer, Roy, it would be 100% not IB, like 60% not consulting, even maybe more than that, you know, like, and I'm sure there are other industries like finance and accounting that I have no interest in, you know. Does that help you?
Definitely.
Yeah. Sure, you dive into your week.
Yeah, so similar to Alvin, it was pretty hectic. We started every day we have a team meeting slot from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. where I meet my learning team. We call it study teams, similar to Alvin's. I have 5 people on my study team, and we go over the cases that we have to submit. Unlike Alvin, we don't have as many cases. We have regular class homework and assignments, and probably our caseload is 50-50. So like Alvin said, he had maybe a third, I guess. He said he had 3 cases per day, every day of the week. I have 1 case per day, every day of the week. And it was extremely busy. It just felt like someone turned on the fire hose, basically. We had a career session where the career management group head will talk to you. Every team also has a personal coach who will try and understand what your interests are, and they will guide you to the right people or who you need to talk to achieve your goals. Essentially, they're like psychologists, I guess, and in a way, they try and understand what your goals are by asking you these questions, and they guide you and point you to all these people that you need to talk to achieve your goals. The other thing that they did for us in terms of preparation was they showed us the power of the network and how important that is, and how that's probably like the #1 thing that you're going to leverage to get a job, to get an internship, to do whatever you need. So our first 2-hour meeting, we went through how to draft an email to a alumni, and how you can set up coffee chats. And we live sent, they gave us emails of all our previous alumni, and they said, find one that is in your industry and send them an email like right now. So we all drafted an email and we sent it. And it feels really intimidating, but tomorrow I'm talking to one of the guys who's in the clean energy industry that I want to work in.
How did you? That you just kind of answered it, but how did you go about? So there was a long list, right? You get this enormous listserv of names, and hey, they work for this company. You don't know exactly what they do. I mean, maybe you do, but how did you choose one like instantly when they were asking you, hey, choose one now and email them? What did you go for?
The way it was set up is the Excel sheet. You can filter by industry, you can filter by function, you can filter by location. So I filtered by energy, which was the sector that I wanted to go into. And within energy, you can see that some people were into project management, some people were into business development, and some people were into general management. So I chose the one that the guy that I chose was doing project management. So they were developing new technologies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So after your coffee chat, and then I had another question too. You were saying your schedule just is different than Alvin T. Do you guys have classes that your specific class you're taking? Are you taking economics, and then I don't know, accounting right after? Or it seemed like in Alvin's case, it was just, hey, come hang out for 4 hours and do study, case studies, and then discuss. But I didn't hear any of like. I guess I was expecting a lecture or someone kind of teaching you guys something.
Yeah.
So for me, the way it is, I have I'm taking 4 courses in fall A, which means I'll have these 4 courses for the next 7 weeks. And every week, my schedule is identical. Every class is 2 hours long. And my first class I have a class every day from 9 to 11. And I have a class, every class is 2 days a week. So I have a class 9 to 11, then I have a class 2 to 4, and then there's one class that's 6 to 9, that's only once a week. So I have like professors teaching the material, and then on Fridays we have the discussion with my group.
And then Israel, on my end, it's 3 classes a day, 4 days a week, and there's a difference between teaching and facilitation. And what Darden does with these case studies is they facilitate a discussion. They, like this latest marketing case, we stumbled through it, in my opinion, right? Because we were so new, we didn't know what we were doing or what we were saying, and it seemed like that's the job of these professors. They don't teach you because in their mind, if you come up with your answer, you remember it better, right? So we stumbled through it, but we nonetheless, eventually got to where we needed to go. It just took a little longer. And then as we hone in the craft and the facilitation art, we'll get better at it. And I think to an extent, what we're extracting out of these cases right now is very, maybe not mature, or maybe you don't know the best way to extract the information as compared to maybe a seasoned MBA, or maybe after your first year. And now we're just kind of very new at it. And then as we get better at it, we will understand what the professors are asking for and add more value to these facilitations. So we have 3 1-hour classes, 3 1.5-hour classes per day for the 4 days a week.
Yeah, that I was curious. It just seems all I heard was we do case studies and then discuss, then regroup and take a break and more case studies, but it seems like it's pretty spread out. I have a question for Roy. So, have you gotten coffee chat requests from people from INSEAD reaching out to you, what you're doing? And if after that you can answer, now that you've gone through probably more case studies remember, did you see like a progress of improvement on your like taking information from the case studies now? Like what do you like look for immediately versus what were you focusing on when you first started?
Yeah, sure. So I guess your first question on the coffee chat, the answer is a resounding yes. I think since I graduated in July, I've had more than 10 chats with current students. It's really nice to get messages from them, either emails or LinkedIn. My name is in the alumni database under energy, so probably similar situation to Sharoon. You get a message from someone interested in energy, especially through the INSEAD Energy Club, and it's always cool to talk to them, tell them what I like, what I don't like, and just be really candid. I think the nice thing about reaching out to alumni, you don't get the sales pitch, you don't get the HR recruiting pitch, you get the legitimate, candid responses. What's good about the company, what's troublesome, and it's fun to connect with young people and hear what their ambitions are, even though I'm pretty much the same age as them still. Then from the case study point of view, I think that all of our schools do it a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, it's quite the same. You know, we had our first period was 6 classes. Most of them you do get a case study before your lecture. For different teachers and different classes, you can either spend the whole lecture just debating some topics in the case, or you can do a much more traditional lecture, like in uncertainty, data, and judgment, which was our statistics course. That's a lot more lecture heavy. You have a case study, but then you're really going to talk about statistics and how you use statistics to make sense of uncertain data, as the course title says. But as you get going with the cases, I think the similar situation to what Shroon and Alvin are facing now, drinking through a fire hose, you know, I felt like that because you come from an engineering background and you expect, well, there should be one right answer, right? If you're doing a structural analysis or something, the part's either going to fail or it's not going to fail. But when it comes to like a strategy case where you're reading about business decisions, there's not necessarily a right answer or a wrong answer. There might be some answers that work in the situation, some that don't, but there's really a lot of different ways to approach it, which is what makes the case studies so fascinating from a debate point of view. So I would say over time in the case studies, I got more comfortable with the ambiguity. And not just that, but I got more confident with my conclusions, even conclusions that might have been totally wrong in some context, but you've got to have the confidence to say, well, this is what I believe in. This is why I believe in it. This is why I think it would work in my experience, but also be open to hear somebody with a different experience give a total contradictory input to what you came up with. So yeah, reading the cases, you always bring your own bias to it, and you gotta not get caught in all the details because there's a lot of reading and you can spend way too much time poring over the details when really the fun and learning comes from debating with classmates from different backgrounds on the general topics, right?
That's a good point, Roy. We have a decisions analysis class, and at the end of the class, there was no right answer, right? And as an engineer, I just stayed back and told the professor, like, I'm straight up struggling with this. I'm so binary, 1 and 0, black and white, and these shades of gray is just driving me crazy. But Roy's 100% right. When you go into the business world, you know, one thing they look for is the ability to deal with ambiguity. You may not be able to know the topic or whatever, but you just need to be asking good questions and learn from the context and just have an opinion. Having an opinion by itself is great because you know where you stand, but then you're also open to being swayed. And if you really want to, if you stick by your opinion, that's great, but have a good basis behind it. I think that's the power of the business school, the case method, and just learning from so many different people and the diverse industry.
And I agree with Roy and Alvin. And one other thing I would like to add is in the business case method and the business world, you don't know what the right answer is, essentially. Someone made a decision and there was an outcome. Was that the best outcome? You will never know. Maybe they could have done something different, even though they may have made like $1 million or $1 billion on that decision, but maybe they could have made 2 billion, or maybe they could have made 500 million. You would never know, essentially.
Where from your case studies, Roy mentioned you having to go in and really be confident in your conclusions and being able to back up why you are proposing or have come to this conclusion. Or during your case studies that you heard some of your classmates go through and defend an opposing view, did you get swayed, or were you like, man, damn, I think he might be right, I should change my mind? Or were you like, no, this guy is an idiot, he should change his mind?
I've been wrong all this week, and I think that's the best part, is just like being okay with being wrong, right? Like in fact, I was it's really funny. One of these cases, I had an opinion about this leader in our leading organizations class, and I thought he was great at what he did. And then I went into the class with that opinion. We got put into breakout teams. We discussed it. Someone influenced me and changed my opinion. We were on the smaller side of the class of wanting to fire the leader. you know, I was in support of him before, and then he, like, the person on my team convinced me otherwise, right? Because he had worked with a leader that was similar, and just that firsthand experience, like he and his anecdotal experience, just really swayed my opinion, right? But as it turns out, we were still on the lower end of the spectrum. So if you squint your eye, I was right to begin with, but then I got swayed on the other side, which is fine. And like, no one's gonna win or lose. It's just like you're learning over the next few weeks, you know, and it's just going to be continuous learning in the next 2 years and for the rest of your career. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It takes, you know, it's probably like pushes you a little harder to understand material if you just batted zero week one. You're maybe gonna just adjust, and that's all right. It's always like an overshoot. Like, I spent way too much time in the details. Maybe I should, you know, step back and look at a broader picture. But that's awesome. Sharoon, how many were you?
There are a couple of people that there's no specific case. I think there's one case that I feel like I was right in.
Take on, I guess you're not going through as many, but were some of you
Right. So.
Oh, back.
Very bad. Okay, so to answer your question, yeah, one of the cases that we were working on, I guess as an engineer, I spend a lot of time on data analysis, and some things that make more sense to me and something that's more acceptable. One of the data sets that we were given, one of the guys said, okay, they gave us day by day data. So I'm just gonna say day one is Monday, and I'm going to bucket all these data and just say, okay, sales on Thursdays were low compared to sales on Fridays. And to me, I cannot wrap my head around that. It's like, there's no way for you to know that that was a Thursday. Plus, they said they've taken out some data, like the outliers, like Christmas and 4th of July from the data set. But there's no way for you to know that this is true. But he was basing his argument on that data so strongly. So I was like, I cannot try, like I was trying to explain to him, but I felt like, okay, man, maybe this guy, like I need to talk to him. But on some other case, he had like exceptional ideas and exceptional points. But I was like, wow, I never thought that that's possible. So it's the example I gave you is important because it's the same person who had like two different views, one which felt like was not right and one which was like brilliant, essentially.
That's interesting. Roy, quick question, time check. I don't know if we are at the 40-minute limit for it or if you're getting extended any.
We got the extension, baby. Zoom loves us.
Nice. Yeah, I got the same one last time. Cool. So that was a good take on case studies. I'm looking forward to hearing how week 3 goes, and it sounds like Alvin's going to be going through considerably more case studies. So we'll see if he gets a couple right this week or not. And so moving on to the networking. So it sounds like you guys
one last piece. Sorry,
Sure.
I joke that that this case study method is challenging one of the most fundamental things that I'm slow at, which is reading. Right. So I think that's super ironic and really funny. So I have to get better at it. I'm not a poor reader. I'm just a slow reader. Right. I synthesize it, but it takes time.
You should bring some of your cases to Cali next weekend, and I want to sit with you on one, Alvin.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. I have it all on my phone, so we can go through it.
I think you need to print them out, bro. Because
yeah,
like
cases, print them out. That's
Reading on the phone sucks.
You want to be able to highlight. You go quickly. You highlight figures. You read the questions first. You read the.
I do it on my tablet. So I highlight everything and do everything on my tablet. I'm just saying I'll bring my tablet with me, but I can read it on my OneNote here as well if I needed to.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I use your method, Roy, the OneNote method. So everything's online. I write all my notes from class. I write all my scribbles as I doodle on my tablet, and everything's in one central repository. So I don't have to have my class notes printed out, my notebook, and everything. If I have to reference it later in the future on my tech notes, I can go just on. Everything's on OneNote. Yep.
That's an interesting point. So Alvin's obviously, you going the e-notebook method and trying to save everything online. Roy, you mentioned printing stuff out and being able to have a hard copy outlining. It's probably hard to know what the rest of your classmates are doing since you don't see them in class and how they take notes and what they may be doing. But is there an overall trend shift in now everyone using an e-pad for this? I guess I really prefer pen and paper and being able to have a physical copy of something. I can use all the other stuff, but for me, even now at work, I like having written down notes, and I reference them a lot. It's not as convenient. I have to sometimes kind of scribble back, and I can't do a Control F, a quick search, but maybe I'm more comfortable with it. I probably need to open up and accept the future and start using some sort of e-notebook. But what have you guys seen so far?
Maybe I answered the question because I had the luxury of starting the first week with all my classmates. And even though I said to Alvin he should print it out, the truth is I did everything in OneNote. So print it out means inserting the PDF into OneNote, and then you can highlight it. You would print it out if you're going to do group work because it's nice to be able to look at something together. But I printed out less than 5% of the cases in our year. All of them were on my OneNote, and you can highlight just fine. But I was in the minority. You know, in my class of about 50 people, I think there was 1 or 2 other people that only did on their tablet. You know, you're not actually allowed to have your laptop open during class because it hides your face, and they want it to be a very engaging environment. You know, for Alvin and Sharun, it's much different because they have to be on the laptop to engage with other people. So that's a challenge, but that's the way it is today, and that's a good learning experience in itself to learn how to stay focused with all the distractions of your laptop. But I do think you're right, Izzy. I think the move, if you look at younger people, they're a lot more comfortable with the technology. It's not that they don't know how to use paper, but they see the benefits of having unlimited cloud storage and hyperlinks and all of that sort of stuff. And you can really organize very efficiently. You can have all your textbooks on your computer, and you know it weighs just a pound or 2, so it makes your backpack a lot lighter. So I think you are going to see a push towards tablets, but even though it's 2020, 2019, paper is still the favorite, even in the classroom, from my experience.
I think I'll have to disagree with Roy on this one. I think maybe I am sort of like on the older age group for my class, and the way I know it is we had a Slack poll on how many people like what to take notes, and it was overwhelmingly online and e-notes and tablets. I personally I was like Israel. I liked writing pen on paper, having a hard copy, but I wanted to explore, and I got an iPad with the Notability app, and it's basically like an unlimited notebook with the ability to do anything and everything. So essentially, I am still writing, but it's on a e-notebook and e-paper, and it's easy to retrieve. I do have my cases on there as well, but I also like to read fast. I like having a physical paper copy, which I can highlight and make notes, and then I'll transfer them on to Notability just by taking a picture, so it'll be there at the end. I think Israel's
maybe that's your Southern California, Silicon Valley type. You know, they've got the.
It's likely, yeah. And most people like are, on average, I would say like 5 years or so younger than me. So they all grew up with this technology. Like most of them, in the chat box, one of the things that people were talking about is how they did it all through college, right?
Yeah.
So they're used to it. And honestly, I think the technology it's improved tremendously. Like today, this Notability, I think I shared it with Israel and Alvin. You can try to, they've made it as realistic as possible.
Yeah, it was really nice. I'm very particular about those kind of details in note taking. It's just frustrating when you're trying to take something fast and something messes up or you press the wrong button, but it was really good. So yeah, maybe in my my life I'll start introducing some of this stuff just to not fall behind and be that one old dude you still using a notepad. But this reminded me, Sharu, you saying I have to disagree with Roy. I think when you're doing your case study, you're presenting your opinion. Is it like immediate when someone tells you, I completely disagree, I think you are further than the right answer than you can possibly be, or is there like I guess just conflict-wise or conflict of opinion, right? Because you have to be open to a good argument. Is it someone screaming to tell you you're wrong, or not that they think you're wrong, or is it more like the professor steering everyone towards disagreeing with you, with maybe pushing you in the right direction? What's
So
that like?
that's a really good question, and I think the way it works is the professor fosters healthy debate. The way we do it in class is the professor will say, okay, how many of you agree with this particular decision? And I think technology has made it really easy for us, at least. So whenever we can like raise our hands, there's all sorts of statistics that show up. Okay, 30% people are agreeing with this. All these people. There's a lot of statistics that's visible to you. So you say, okay, I agree with this, and you have your hand up, and the professor is able to call on the person and say, okay, tell me your point of view, and then you have a minute and you talk about your point of view and your opinion, and then the professor will say, okay, how many people are against? And then people raise their hand. He'll cold call one of them and say, okay, what are your counterpoints? So it's very respectful, but everyone essentially just attacks the opinion and not the person, and it fosters a really healthy debate.
I think if I can add to what Sharon just said, one of the most common phrases in our case debate classes would be to add to that point, or
Building on.
going on what Sharon said. And it would be funny because sometimes they would say, well, to Sharon's point, XYZ, and they would actually totally have a different opinion, but they do it in a way where it's like, I see what you're saying and your logic, but I see it a totally different way.
And
so
then the professor goes in and it's like, let's unpack that a little.
Yes, let's unpack that a little. Let's dig a little deeper. And, sometimes they stir up conflict.
Yeah.
And we did
intentionally just to get the answer out of the students.
They have to. And, I think especially in your first couple of weeks, you won't get a lot of I disagree. But by month 2, month 3, at least in my experience, you have some students that have a reputation for being, a bit egotistical, a bit more Machiavellian maybe, and you'll have students say, I totally disagree with what that person just said, and I would never work in their company, and I think that you should be fired. And that's always super exciting.
That was gonna be my other point. Was gonna see how that transition. But it looks like, let's start to kind of wrap it up. We'll keep this one short. You guys gotta finish your beers or anything. But for week 3, we'll be at my wedding, my wedding day, and we'll actually be together. So that's gonna be pretty interesting. But I'm interested to hear next week with some time now getting to know your classmates, if any alliances have been forming, if you're like starting to chat on the side with some of your friends, like, dude, this guy's an idiot, or like, like, oh man, I can't believe you got to do this, or just some networking outside. If you guys are starting to make some friends, and how you guys are clicking with some of your classmates. So if you just keep that in mind for next week, we'll dive into just how you're getting along with your cohort, and yeah, networking I think is what I want to discuss next week. Well, and we'll go off and see what Alvin's doing on his case studies.
Yep, for sure.
I want to show some art that Perla made. That I have it. It's called Thick.
That was on your notebook?
That's on my notebook. Perla drew it. It's called Thick by P. Meza. It's Apple Pencil and iPad Pro. But
that's amazing.
Is that Izzy brushing his teeth in the morning?
Is what?
Hey, Hey,
But okay, well, all right, fellas, thank you for calling in again. We'll talk again more next week in person. Looking forward to seeing you guys. And T-minus 1 week till I'm married. So
Ooh. All right, buddy. Take care.
Come on, take it
Drive
easy.
safe. All right.
Drive safe.
that's
Bye.
your own. That's
Bye,
your own.
Perla.
Bye.